Hello and welcome to the Year of Being 70, episode 41. I'm Lucy Macara and I am in Norfolk in the UK, and I'm with my childhood friend Lisette Schoutemaker, who I've known since I was 8, and she is in Amsterdam in the Netherlands, and we both turned 70 last year, and we chat weekly about what it feels like to be 70. And this week, we're going to talk about our environment, the homes we live in, and the influence that the environments we've been in, the homes we've been in all our lives, how they have affected us and related to our personalities, our way of being, our way of working, and see where we get to. So, Lisette, I have never been to your home. Tell me about it.
You've never been to any of my homes, yes. Well,
Oh,
you were in
once, yes,
Amsterdam, and
yes,
then we lived on a canal. But now what's already so interesting is I grew up in a small satellite town in a kind of not really the country, but a village. And I moved to the city, and you grew up in a city and you moved to the country.
exactly.
So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, so I live in a very modern apartment building, in a very modern apartment. It's also very, yeah, new. It's very eco. We have solar panels. We have a gray water system to flush the loos with rainwater, and also to water the plants with rainwater. We have very good insulation, and so we are kind of minimum energy house, and it's very light. It has windows on all sides. We've lived here for 2 years now. I've lived in the city center of Amsterdam for 40 years, and I really had to adapt to go across the river. And yeah, but I love it here now. It's also a bit of a pioneering place. I see a lot of construction that is now not happening because of holidays. But I like that there's a lot being built, because that means there's more shops and cafes and restaurants, and I like city life. How about you?
Well, I was brought up in the city. I was a London girl, a Chelsea girl, for a long time. And so, yes, I used to love city life. And I lived in cities until I was in my mid 40s, essentially. I had a couple of outings where I went to university in Liverpool and then in Leeds, both of which I love, particularly Liverpool. And then I went to live in Australia
So,
for,
what do you love about Liverpool? I've never been. It's only the city the Beatles hail from. That's all I
yes,
know about Liverpool.
well, it's gosh, I was there such a long time ago. I was there when the year I was 19,
Yeah.
so many, many years ago. But it's a very it's kind of redolent with history, and not sort of historical history, but it has a real character, Liverpool. It has its own very specific accent. I don't know if you'd recognise a Liverpool accent if you heard one.
Liverpudlian, is that it?
Liverpudlian, yes,
Liverpudlian.
Scant. It's called. And For me, it was also a kind of when I went there to university. I don't know why I'm sort of heading back into Liverpool here. It was a very rundown city as well, and that for me, ridiculously, that had a sort of nostalgic feeling in a way. Not nostalgic for anything I remembered, but it was. I don't know. I suppose I had come. It was really my first experience of not being in a fairly posh environment, a big house. And I moved into a hall of residence, which was
Hmm.
a hall of residence, nothing special about it. But I quite quickly,
I don't know. What is a hall of residence? I mean, that's a
sorry,
term that I have no idea what it is.
sorry, it,
Maybe from Harry Potter, I can imagine what it
no, no,
is.
no, it's not. I don't think Harry Potter's been to a hall of residence. It's where university students live. So
Okay. A
nothing.
hall of residence. You, the British, I have to give it to you. I mean, we used to live like in rooms, but you live in a hall of
Well,
residence.
I mean, it was a block of flats, basically, a
Yeah.
block of one-room flats. Nothing. I think the one I was in has been knocked down now. Anyway, it was called Roscoe and Gladstone, after, I don't know, prime ministers or something. But it was, yes. But I wasn't in there for very long because I met Rob, my boyfriend, then fiance, then husband, and I moved in with him, and he was living in a very um, battered old house over a shop. It was, the cheapest of the cheap kind of student accommodation, but it was typical of Liverpool university students at that time. It did not have any hot water. If you wanted hot water, you
Really?
had to light a fire downstairs, and it would heat the boiler. That's how
But
old.
light a fire with gas or
No,
would you
no,
need to collect wood in the woods?
yeah, coal I think would have been used, but
Coal.
yes,
And this was the 70s.
yes. I
Just
mean, it was probably.
imagine what we have lived through in our 70 years, how things have changed because now we don't even in our house have radiators. We have,
Well, you may
heating.
not. I do, and I also have coal fires as well and wood fires. I mean, I have a wood.
Really? You burn wood?
Yes, yes.
Oh my
I'm sorry,
goodness.
Lisette. This is terrible. And worse still, sorry, I'm really digressing now. Worse still, our heating system is oil in my house because
Wow.
we're not on gas. Um,
Wow. I think the Netherlands, because we found gas, all of Netherlands was kind of gasified, but now we're all electrifying.
yeah. Well,
And our heating actually comes from the burning of the waste, and that comes into
oh,
that's
I'm
our
certain
heating.
as a country, you're much more eco-friendly than us. But I happen to live in a 17th century farmhouse in a village in the middle of nowhere, and
Yeah.
there is no gas in the village. We are not on the gas pipeline.
Maybe you can just skip that and go to electricity, all at
Yes,
once.
yes.
Do you have solar panels?
No, because our house is too old. It's what's called, it's listed. It's grade two,
Oh,
so we can't we
yeah.
can't put stuff on the roof that disfigures it.
Yeah, in Dutch we call that a monument. It's on the monument list, and then you can't do it. When we lived in the city center, we couldn't do it either.
Oh, right. No, exactly. I mean, my house is very far from a monument, but yes, it is. It is old enough to be listed, and
Yeah,
you can't
yeah,
do things to it. But no, going back to Liverpool in 1973, I think the house that we were living in, it was probably condemned. I mean, it probably wasn't, an acceptable living place even then. But that was where students lived.
wow.
So we wouldn't have had a shower anyway because showers didn't exist in the UK at the time.
Really?
No, no, we would have had baths.
Wow.
There was a bath, but we couldn't. I mean, if you wanted a bath in that house, you'd have had to boil a million kettles and pots and pans on the cooker and light a fire. So we would go and have baths in the student union. That's
Wow, Lucy. So I lived in my student days, I lived in Leiden. I studied in Leiden and I lived in what we called a girl's house. And I moved from one to the other. And um, but we had to share showers with about, I think there were two showers on our floor for 12 women. But we had showers, we had hot water, my goodness.
I know this wasn't really normal. This wasn't
Oh, okay.
this was just very impoverished student living,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
sort of whatever could be afforded kind of thing. So, but it was a house with a lot of character, and people were around there a lot, and it was, yeah, I mean, obviously I was kind of, I'd fallen in love with Rob, and he was
It
living.
was all well and romantic, and
Yes,
this
exactly.
is what we're doing, very far away from Chelsea Square.
Absolutely, very far away. Yeah, indeed. I don't think my parents ever went there. Um,
No, they never came.
I don't think, not to that house, which was 153 Back Earl Road. I can remember the
For
address.
you Liverpudlians, you can still go there and
I,
see
I,
where Lucy lived.
I, I wonder if it's been demolished now. I don't even know. I mean, it was a long street of terraced Victorian houses.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's but what I was saying was that
What you were saying before I asked you a question, yeah?
I'd always lived in cities. Um, well, I moved to Australia and lived in a small city, which I found called Newcastle, which I found strangely a sort of, I don't know, suburban compared to a big capital type city. And then we moved to Sydney, which I kind of found much more enjoyable, I suppose. But
And in Sydney, did you live like in an apartment in the city centre? Did you live in the suburb? Where did you live?
we lived in, funnily enough, we lived in a very a kind of British in a way terraced house. Victorian, well, it wasn't Victorian because
So a terraced house. Again,
terraced
explain.
house.
What is that?
That's a row of houses. They're usually brick built. I mean, they might have
Okay.
a front, but they have a very specific layout. So the front door is on one side.
Yeah.
There are rooms on the other side. And usually you have a sitting room at the front, then a second room, and then there's a sort of kitchen-y bit built on
Yeah.
the back, and then
Yeah.
you have another story above it, or maybe two stories.
Yeah. 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 And they're all connected,
They're all
like 10
they're
in
all
a
stuck
row or
together.
so.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So we lived in Sydney in I mean, most people lived in, they called them suburbs, but they were very much, you wouldn't call it a suburb. It's just a sort of a region in kind of outside the city centre, but very much part of city life. And yes, so it was not too dissimilar to living in London then. And then we came back to London after that and lived in another terrace house. And then yeah, so I've kind of somebody did say to me, every time I visit you, you're always in the same house. It doesn't matter where you are, you always
But not now when you're
not
in the
now, no,
17th
no, not at
century. I mean,
all.
that's very unique.
Yes, yes. So what about you? You said your childhood house was sort of suburban.
Yeah, so let me say, I was conceived, I know where I was conceived, around the corner from Leidseplein in the city center, in the center of Amsterdam. So, but then my parents moved to Utrecht. And actually, my parents, after the war, lived in one room. It was real scarcity of, and then they moved to a little flat in Utrecht that was newly built, so was a modern building at the time, and we lived there for 2 years. So I was born in Utrecht, which is a city, but I didn't really know
What's
it. I was too young.
yeah, what
Huh?
sort of size city is it? It's not as big as Amsterdam.
No, it's not as big as Amsterdam. Amsterdam is about, I think, 900,000. This is a really small world city. Utrecht will be about, I think, 500,000. I have no idea really. And it's an old town with many monasteries and things, but I didn't know that. And then my parents, when my brother was born, bought a house in a small kind of satellite village that was created like in the 1900s. It was woods and you know pastures and heather, and they created a little village there for people for men mainly, to work in Utrecht and then commute, and then for women and children to have a safe and beautiful life in Bilthoven. And that's where I grew up. And our first house was two houses joined together. You must have a term for that. We call it twee onder één kap, two
Oh,
under
I
one
see.
roof.
Yes. So I mean, it wasn't too. Yes, yes. I mean, that's. We do have a term for it. Completely gone
Anyway,
ahead, but yes.
in the beginning, I had a bedroom I shared with my sister. We had one bathroom, not a shower, indeed. We had one bathroom which had one sink, a bath, and the toilet in it. And so the five of us, my sister was born not long after my brother. So, in the morning had to all get ready for school and things in the one bathroom. And then my parents kind of fixed up the house and built out the attic. And I had a pink pale pink room up in the attic with my own sink. I was like a princess up there. It was unbelievable that I had this. And yeah, and then when I was about, I don't know, 13, we moved to a house my parents built. So that was also very new, very modern, and very big. And then my sister and I had our own shower, and the boys had their own shower, and my parents had like a master master bathroom. And also when they were digging, for the basement of the house, my parents thought, oh, they might as well dig another hole. And then so we were one of the very few people then with a swimming pool, which hugely affected my life
Of
because
course.
everybody wanted to come and visit me. And oh, they happened to have their bathing costume with
How
them.
strange.
Oh, I just so happened. So
Yes,
uh,
you became a social hub.
we became a social hub. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes, I remember when I stayed with you, and I think I must have been 11 or 12. So that would probably be your middle house.
Yeah. That would be the two under one roof.
Yeah. So
We would
that's
still
what
go
we call semi-detached.
semi-detached.
So
Yeah.
you didn't have a swimming pool then, but we
No,
used
no, no.
to swim in one of your friends' swimming pools. I remember that.
Oh, yes, there was this family. My parents had like this, couples friendship with people in Zeist, a colleague of my father's
Oh,
actually.
right.
And we always wanted to go there. On Sunday, said, let's go there, let's go there. So we were the people bringing our swimming trunks along and our bikinis along and going there. Yeah. And
Yes.
my parents would play Mahjong, and I can still hear the sound of those,
Yes. Clicking.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah. Oh, we were there. Okay, yeah.
Yes, yes. So I was also conceived in a small flat, I assume, because when my parents got married, they had very little money and they lived in a small one-bedroom flat near Sloane Square in Chelsea. And I slept behind a screen in the dining room. I think I must have had a cot
Oh,
or
really?
yes. So that was a pretty tight. I have sort of vague, I don't know if I'm making it up or not, but I sort of have vague memories of that. But then my grandparents, who were the ones who lived in Chelsea Square, this big house in Chelsea Square, that in fact they had bought in the 30s when it was a new build. I mean,
Oh, really?
it wasn't like a grand family mansion coming down through the generations. They had bought it when it was first built. And funnily enough, it was at that point it was called Trafalgar Square, and it was then changed because of Trafalgar Square to Chelsea Square. But they bought it as it was built, so it wasn't a kind of it wasn't a grand posh area at the time. But they then lived in it till obviously 1956 or whatever. And my father lived in it during the war. And then they wanted to move out, and they offered it to my parents as a family home.
Hmm.
They wanted to
Hmm.
it on. And my mum was kind of like, I don't think we can really afford this. This is a huge house. I don't, it's a lot to take on. But they did. So we moved in there. It must have been when I was around two, because my brother, Roger, my next brother, who's 2 and a bit years younger than me, he wasn't born in the house, but he was, he
Yeah.
came along when we were in the house,
Yeah.
because I have very clear
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
and it was an absolutely bonkers house. I mean, it wasn't a big family house. It was a house designed for a very wealthy couple. With it had back stairs out of the kitchen for the servants, and a sort of special landing where there were two servants' bedrooms and a bathroom. It had a big sort of suite. I mean, a kind of like a bedroom, a big master bedroom, a dressing room, and a bathroom for the couple. And then there was on the other side of the house, there was a spare. So there was a similar, slightly smaller suite for their guests. And that was the bedroom layout. There were not, it wasn't a family house with bedrooms for children and things. So
Hmm.
it was always rather a kind of the house was always rather eccentrically organized, and it was full of my grandparents' um, kind of furniture. They'd had an elderly cousin who'd been a collector of antiques and things, so it had a lot of antiques, but they were all very battered and falling to bits. Sort of. So that was where I grew up, and that was completely that I think established my normal kind of eccentric, rather odd, full of battered old furniture. And kind of it's sort of like make do and mend kind of post-war kind of feeling to
Yeah.
it.
So is that how your house is now?
Yes.
Oh, it is.
It is really. It's kind of, well, it's not. I mean, yes, I've still got bits and pieces of the kind of family furniture from houses that have been sold off all the time. I mean, we've been in the house I'm in now for 20 plus years. And, we kind of decorated it when we first moved in. And since then, it's just gradually gone downhill. And I've always felt that when you stay in houses too long, they just accumulate rubbish and
Yeah.
stuff. And it's almost
Oh, they do that. The house does that, not you.
yes, no, 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 not me or anybody else. No, the house just hangs on to stuff. Uh,
Yeah.
so yes, it's very messy. It's quite eccentric. Weirdly, this house has back stairs as well to what would have been a maid's room, which I really like. It makes me feel very at home, I think.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, so it's interesting that my parents built their own house with an architect, and it was at the time, very modest, modern. And then, yeah, I actually did that too. Albert also, my brother also lives in a modern house. Aled lives in our, my sister lives on our family house and is has lived there now for 25 years and is in the process of renovating and in the process of clearing things out because the house has accumulated a lot and there's still a lot of my parents' things there. So
Right. I didn't
yeah.
realize Alade lived in your family
Yeah.
house. Oh, that's interesting. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. So yeah, so I think, it's fair to say then that our original family houses have probably, kind of affected how we choose.
And
Well,
that's so interesting. I wonder if you, listeners or viewers, recognize that when you go back to the house that you lived in, are you also more or less, I mean, I don't want to use the word copying, but are you also kind of recreating, homes that resemble where you grew up because that's where you feel, held and it feels familiar? Very interesting.
yes, or I
I'd
wonder
never thought about that in that way.
no, and I wonder if some people really rebel against that and have very, consciously very different types of houses to or homes to to how and where they grew up, whether
Yeah.
that's uh, an interesting thing. But the other thing that we have kind of rebelled against in a sense is that I grew up in the city and lived in the city for a long time, and now I live in a small village in the middle of, in a very rural situation. And you had a sort of
Yeah.
village, kind of. I mean, it wasn't a rural village you're built over, but it was.
Yeah.
It
It
wasn't.
was a,
And
yeah.
you have moved into and really embraced city life
So
completely.
what made you move to Norfolk?
Well, I really was at the time I got married to Richard. He had a kind of vision of life in the country. He kind of wanted to move, although he's kind of denies that a bit now, but it really was, that was what we were going to do. So that was the plan, and then things like having children didn't quite go to plan, so it took a bit longer to adopt and stuff like that. But we did when our first daughter was 4, we moved to the country and Norfolk because I wanted to be. My mum was living in Suffolk, and so I kind of had this feeling that we should be near her. Also,
I
Norfolk.
don't know where all that is.
No, it's
In England, I basically know London, and then there's Wales on the outskirts there, and then there's Scotland up high above, and kind of Liverpool,
yes,
Cambridge,
yes.
all not so far from.
Well, if
But
you
otherwise,
if you picture a map of Britain, uh,
yeah.
and you see it as an old lady riding a pig.
Oh, I've never seen that, but yeah, okay.
Okay, so the East Anglia is sort of the pig's bottom, if you like. It's the round bit sticking out to the right, sort of low below
I
the
think the
centre.
White Cliffs of Dover is what I
It's
see
not the
there,
White
but
Cliffs of Dover. It's up and right from the right White Cliffs
okay.
of Dover.
Yeah, but where is Norfolk and Suffolk?
So Suffolk is on more. It's more to the right if you're looking at the map of so
Yeah,
East
so to the
Anglia is
east.
sort of Norfolk, Suffolk, and Essex mostly, and possibly a bit of Lincolnshire. So Norfolk is further. Oh gosh, I don't know. My geography is so bad, even in my own area.
But it takes you 3 hours to drive up to London and
It
you drive north.
usually, I mean, depending on traffic, I can do it in 2.5. Yes,
Yeah,
but
okay.
it's sort of it's not. It took me an hour and a bit to drive to Aldborough, which was where my mum was
Where
living,
your mother was. Oh, okay.
and
Now I
where
get it.
I
Now
also
I get
grew
it.
up with our.
But it was basically your husband who wanted to move to the country and had an image of life in the country.
He did.
And does reality and his image, are they the same?
Probably not, but I also had this romantic idea that I would, when I was a sort of teenager, I think, and I wanted to be a writer. That was in my head, and I thought that I would live in the country. Then that was, I always had this kind of vision that I would end up being a novelist living in the country. That was my kind of long-term vision. But I didn't really want to do that for a very long time. I could never understand, if you drove outside London, I would look at suburbs and country villages that we drive through, and I think, what on earth do people living here do? I couldn't kind of conceive of life outside a big city really. And it wasn't till Vika was came along, and obviously Richard liked sort of dogs and being outside and gardening and stuff like that. And but also London was very full and very sort of full of cars, quite dirty at that point. And I also felt that I didn't want to be there anymore, and I wasn't really taking advantage of the cultural things that were going on. And so yes, I also at that point really had this vision of living in the country. And for me it sort of pretty much has. I mean, it's not like kind of it's not like the Archers. That kind
I
of.
don't know the arches. Very, very British. You refer to these things that other people have really no conception of.
You told me that you did, that a friend of yours, it's a radio
I know a friend of mine has listened to it for the past 30 years every day and
station.
is very stuck in his way in that, but I have no clue what it
Well,
is.
it's kind of, life in a village in a British, in a British.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, but yes, I love living in the country. I really
You
do.
do?
I cannot conceive of going back to a city now at the moment. Perhaps I will want to later. The worst thing about it is that I'm too far away from my children, so I don't see enough of them. And one of them's in London. I mean, my children who don't live
Yeah.
at home, obviously. My boys, one lives in London and one lives also in the depths of the country, but completely the other side of London. So it's
Yeah.
a long
No,
journey.
of course, that's difficult when you kind of live further afield. But what do you love? You say you love. I love it. I want people to love their life. So you love living in the country.
Well,
Tell me.
I love the quietness. And there's no, very little sound of traffic. When 3 or 4 cars go past our house sort of in quick succession, I think, oh my
Like a
goodness,
parade. Something's
what's
happening.
going on? I love being, I mean, we're surrounded on 3 sides by fields, and I just love watching the seasons and it's sort of this. I don't know, for some people it may be excruciatingly boring, but I love the minutiae of the changing seasons and the regularity of it. And the feeling too, because we're in an old house, the feeling that people have lived here. I mean, obviously we've talked about the ghosts before. I don't see them, but I feel there's a kind of an atmosphere in the house, kind of left from centuries of families working here. The idea, I mean, this house would have owned a lot of the land around it, which obviously we have a garden now, quite a sort of biggish garden, but it's not land as you'd call it. But and I just love, I love not getting into traffic jams. I mean, we do have to drive a lot because there's no public transport that's
Yeah,
any.
I am so not a car-based person. I haven't had a car for the past, I haven't had a car this century. So traffic jams are about what do you mean a traffic jam?
Yeah,
I mean, in
yeah,
Amsterdam, of course, we walk or take the bike or take
yeah.
public transportation. It's no use taking a car.
Absolutely. Yes, yes. So I think I don't know. I think it's that I love, I love going out in the morning. I've got a little flock of chickens. We have fresh eggs. I like going out and feeding them in the morning and hearing the
Mm.
bird song. And it's really kind of, I mean, probably very cliched, simplistic stuff. We have dogs that I walk every day, and I probably wouldn't take any exercise at all if I didn't have to walk the dogs. Both my daughters have been really wanted horses. Horses has been a big thing in their lives, and I don't know how we'd have managed if we stayed in London
Yeah,
because
of
we
course.
still have wanted them. So I don't know. And there's a sense of I think it's also partly kind of my introversion enjoys the lack of people. If you see what I mean, I don't even bump into people on the street hardly. It's sort of if I pass somebody walking up the village to the shop, then that's like, oh goodness me. So
Mm.
I mean, there is a city nearby. There's a very nice city called Norwich, kind of 20 minutes drive away. And that was one of the considerations about where to move to. But yes, there's kind of nothing necessarily holding us here anymore because my mum doesn't live locally anymore. Although my brother's bought a house in Albury now, so yeah, I don't know. It's so what did you always want to? Were you always one of those children, teenagers who wanted to move out of the constraints of a small village, suburban environment and saw the city as a exciting place to be?
I don't know because you live where you live and that's where you live, right? But
Yeah,
when I was 16, I got one of these little kind of mopeds, motorbikes. No, it's not a motorbike, it's kind of a smaller version. And I used to go to the city of Utrecht a lot. I used to go and of course, as a 16-year-old, go to the shops endlessly and not have any money to buy anything, but kind of pine after a denim jacket or whatever. But also to feel that vibe, to feel the vibe of unpredictability, of creativity, of yeah, and I still like that. And then when I chose to study, I thought Amsterdam was actually too big for me. So I went to Leiden, which is even a smaller city, old city. And then I lived in The Hague for a year as a kind of a transition year. And then I moved to Amsterdam. And when I moved to Amsterdam as a anti-squatter, so that was maybe I've said this.
what,
So from
what does
I
that
thought,
mean?
I had a job then in Amsterdam and I commuted from The Hague. And a friend of mine, his brother, had this company that used to put people in buildings that were up for demolition or that were
Yeah,
newly built and did not have any renters yet.
yeah,
And so that was like the anti-squatting because of the shortage of living space. It was a rough time then. We had, the squatters and it could get quite aggressive.
yeah.
And so there was this new apartment buildings in a small street just across from where I worked. And he said, "Well, I have a little flat. I have a flat there, two-room flat, but you have to move in tonight."
Oh, wow.
And
Gosh.
I said, "That's great. I'll move in tonight." So I went back to The Hague and I had to bring a mattress, a table, and um, and I think a little cupboard because that's when you have that, you live somewhere.
Oh, I
And so
see.
from one day to the next, I
Wow.
lived in Amsterdam. And in the morning, when I walked across the Vijzelgracht to Noorderstraat, where I worked, I was like, I'm an Amsterdam person. I am an Amsterdam person. I'm not visiting. I'm really an Amsterdam person. And it for me, it feels like something clicked.
Yeah,
This is where I was conceived. This is where I belong. And I love city life. I love the strange little shops. I love meeting people on the street. So first moving across the I after living in the city center for 40 years, I didn't. And now I do move in, walk into people. I love to know the shopkeepers and kind of know where they're at and have a bit of a environment, a bit of a feeling of, we're all here. And in a way, this is a bit of a pioneering area because all these, new apartment buildings are shooting up. And that suits me.
Yeah,
I
yes.
think of even Amsterdam. I mean, it's now we're celebrating 750 years Amsterdam this year.
Oh, wow.
But it's also a pioneering place. It's a place for new ideas and for new fashions and for new ways of living. And I love all that.
Yes, yes, I can absolutely understand that. I mean, that, yes, that when I moved, when I went to Liverpool, that was very much the feeling of the city at that time. I mean, I was just a student, but there were really exciting theatre companies, art. The new Liverpool Cathedral had been built, and it was a really kind of modern, extraordinary building. And yes, there was a lot of there were the Liverpool poets. There were, there was so much going on. And I suppose I stopped feeling that in London, really. I mean, I moved further and further out, partly to
Yeah.
do with cost.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Then at some point it is London more in theory than in
Yes,
practice.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And it involved kind of traveling, I mean, not as far as I have to travel now, but it involved substantial to get into the center of London will be about an hour, either on a train or in a
Yeah.
car. And it was, yeah, it just stopped feeling exciting, really.
But it's also one of the reasons I think why, I've never really been interested in family life or having children. I could not really
Yeah,
understand why people would do that. But also, when people do that, very often they move out of the city because then
yeah,
horses happen or dogs happen or, they want another kind of life. And yeah, that has never appealed to me. So in a way, city life and childless living or having no children, the no parent path kind of are also well suited.
yes, yes. That's really interesting because I've brought up two separate families, if you like. So my sons were brought up very much in London. They went to London schools. They were very much, they grew up in London. James still lives there, and I think very much feels a Londoner. And then we brought up two girls in the country, going to a little village school, which I think actually was incredibly appropriate and a very good, secure, safe, not too overwhelming place for them. I mean, I don't know that they would necessarily agree, but I don't think either of them have any interest in living in cities now, and probably never will.
Hmm.
So I do think it really does, your childhood environment, city, country, different kind of houses you live in, it really does influence you and kind of set your neurology, if you like, your
Yeah.
expectations of how life and your environment should be.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. Interesting. Interesting. But also, when we were students, it was like a mere 30 years after the end of the war, right?
Yeah,
And for people who are 20, 30 years, it may be a long time, but it's not such a long time for us now from this vantage point. But also, the way you lived in Liverpool and, the way my parents lived, although they kind of climbed out of it quite quickly, is still so marked by that war. And it makes you think of
yeah,
wars, and destruction happening now, how long it takes for, yeah, for people to kind of come to a level of good housing.
yes,
Just to take
yes,
that,
absolutely.
I mean, apart from trauma and other things, to come to a level of finding a place that is good and safe and
Yeah.
healthy again.
Yes, I mean, I absolutely remember when I was, probably below the age of 5, that living in Chelsea, there were lots of still results of the war, bombings, new houses being built slowly but surely, but also, kind of gaps in the street, fences, the iron.
London was bombed relentlessly,
Yeah, yeah.
relentlessly.
Yes, and actually that's why Liverpool was so run down. Now I kind of think about it. Liverpool was still extremely war damaged when I moved there
Yeah,
in 1973, and there was this most beautiful street called Upper Parliament Street, which had the most exquisite houses, and they were all lived in. They were squats. They were all lived in by
yeah,
students. They would have been incredibly grand houses, and I'm sure they've been, kind of repaired and are now wonderful again. But it was,
Well, that's all happened also in our lifetime. And when I talk about Amsterdam, which is now overrun by tourists who all go to this 17th century city center and admire it, when I came to Amsterdam, so that was in 81, parts of town, and certainly also on the canals, houses were kind of held up by beams so they wouldn't fall apart. And it was when I bought my first house, I bought it in 1990, I was 36. And I bought a house on a canal, which was actually not so very old. There had been a fire in that area, so it was from 1910 or so. And a five-story house. And
wow.
someone said to me, "Why would you want to live in that old, derelict part of town?" And now, what was it? Yeah, 90, so 35 years later, all the buildings have been done up and look good and happy. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yes, and actually, I mean, thinking about it, the house that we lived in Liverpool, I mean, it was a row, a street of very, very, it was working class houses, working class people living in them. And although ours was probably worse than most, I mean, that was the situation. It wasn't, there still could have been outside toilets, in the backyard. I mean, they probably weren't, but like some of them could have, it wasn't far from that time. And, not people, when people, had a bathed in a copper bath in front of the fire in the living room from heated. I mean, it just wasn't that far away. Uh,
Yeah.
and yes, it has. And now I go to London and it's almost unrecognizable as the place I grew up in. And in a way, I like to preserve my more nostalgic view of it when, the old buildings were the big buildings and now they're completely, things like St. Paul's Cathedral or, they're completely dwarfed by the massive, massive, tall, I mean, they're not even really.
Glass and
Yes, exactly.
structures. Yeah.
And whereas I can see there's beauty and excitement in some of those, at least, it just doesn't. It kind of, I like to preserve my 1950s, 1960s kind of
Yeah,
view.
so there's another thing, right? So you were raised in this house that wasn't so old, but it felt kind of old with furniture that, was kind of let's make
Yeah,
do, even if it cupboard doesn't really open well anymore, we'll do it anyway. And I was brought up, and so my parents were very much of innovation, of modernity, of building up society, and so I love new structures. I love modern architecture. And I do like St. Paul's Cathedral, but I do,
yes.
and not all modern architecture, but not all old buildings are pretty either.
No, no, you're absolutely right.
So
No,
I have no nostalgia at all.
no, no, that's interesting. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I think, former times when you read, even when we're talking about, I mean, how these circumstances were and how much poverty there was and how much filth and ah
Yeah, no, 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 it wasn't.
how many health issues, how many children died, how many women died in childbirth. I have no nostalgia at all to those times.
No, no, no. I know. I completely agree with you. Sort of personal nostalgia. I'm
Yeah.
sort of stupidly sentimental. I mean, I wouldn't want to, even if I was offered the chance, to go back and visit one of the houses I lived in as a child. I
Oh,
don't,
you wouldn't want to go back and visit it?
no, I don't want to see what people have done to it.
Oh, really? I find it so interesting what people have done with it.
Yeah, I mean, this is well, it's a sort of part of me that is interested. I kind of feel that if I do that, I might lose my very, very. I have a very, very kind of precise memories of the
Yeah.
feelings and the even the way a door handle clicked, or sort of the physicality of a house. And I sort of,
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, there's no reason that my memory would be lost by that, but I sort of feel that's the house I want to remember.
Yeah.
And
I was in a building the other day with my former partner with whom I had my communications agency. And in that building, Christie's is there now, and they had an exhibition. She lives in The Hague. So I said, come to Amsterdam, we can go and pretend to see the exhibition whilst we're really looking at what they did to the space where we had our offices. And
yeah,
it was really interesting to see it. But also more personally, of course, my sister, when she moved into our family house, I mean, she did modernization. She changed it, and she's changing it now. And no, that does not affect me. No, it
no,
does not
no,
affect me. No.
interesting.
Yeah, but you have a much more precise memory than I have. I mean, in general, from
Yeah.
things.
I mean, and I write about them as well. I mean, every novel I've written, well, it's only three, another one on the way, but they're based in a house that I lived in. That's my starting point in a way.
Yeah,
That's the setting
yeah,
for them. And it's very, even though I bring different characters in and everything, the house is really key to my content.
that's true.
So,
Whereas I think my work is more about how can I understand my life and my inner workings better,
yeah,
so I'm free to move ahead.
yes. Also,
Yes,
I think
and
you
offer those insights to other people. Yeah.
Also, I think you live in a less corporeal, more spiritual environment than I do. So you don't really need to hang on to the kind of physical. I don't know, the physical world maybe doesn't affect you so much as it affects me. Although for me, spirits live in, I mean, even though I have no,
Yeah, yeah, they also are
spirit,
attached to things. Absolutely. Yeah.
yes. So
Yeah.
the houses I've lived in have that sort of, um, yeah, in my mind, the kind of in the architecture of my mind, the houses I've lived in play quite an important role somehow. I can't really explain this very well, but they're there, they're very present if I
Yeah.
go back to them or think about them.
Yeah, what I liked, so for 25 years I lived on Herengracht in a 17th century building that we converted and made very modern on the inside. And the building, I mean, had such good proportions that, you could adapt.
Yeah,
But I also liked that, the building would stay and I would come and go.
yeah,
And I found that in a way very reassuring.
yes, yes, absolutely. Oh,
So we are curious about how you think of the houses you've lived in, how they've shaped and formed you, and whether you are nostalgic and want to preserve your memory of where you lived, or whether you are more, how will we call it? I mean, loose like me.
yes, yes, or kind of rebellious, whether you actually really did not like the
Yeah,
environment you grew up in or the home you grew up
yeah,
in, and had consciously gone for
yeah.
something very different for yourself when you were an adult.
It's very interesting to kind of look back on those 70 years through the lens of the houses, and which is also the lens of the how our parents yeah, evolved and had their marriage and their life, and then how we did that.
Yes, yes.
Anyway,
Well, there we go.
there we go.
Another subject discussed. And
Another subject discussed, and I think we're taking a little break now, right, over the
yes,
summer.
yes, we are. I think
Yes,
we'll be away for a couple of weeks now.
yes.
So we
And
will
then we'll be back for the final month.
yes, in September. Wow.
Okay.
Okay. Bye for now.
Bye.